to Stampscaping 101. Let's open up a new arrival. And I'm excited to see if these are going to work well for me. What we have here is some dual-ended embossing drawing stamping pens, okay? I didn't know they were double-sided here. I've been doing some embossing lately, unlike in years past. And I've gotten some great suggestions from everyone, and one person mentioned the embossing pens, which, I don't know, I wasn't really aware of. So I just got these generic ones right here, okay? It comes in a 2-pack. It cost about the same as, you know, the other pens, but you get 2, so, you know, I just went for that. And let's try these out. Okay, now the thing that I would like, you know, to do, or to try here, is I want to try embossing die impressions. Okay, now my dies were just drying too fast, okay? Someone mentioned, yeah, you can emboss anything, but I don't know, they didn't mention, okay, you need like a Versamark or something like that to stamp out your impression in over the top of your previous impression in color, okay, with, you know, the dye-based inks, okay, or anything that's going to dry fast. So, through some experimentation and finding out what didn't work, we're going to try this method here. And I'm hoping it does the trick, because I'm really excited about having some multicolor impressions embossed, okay? And that's what these pens are going to be for. I would really like to have some things raised that aren't just a single monochromatic print of, you know, like a pigment ink or something like that. All right. So the dye-based inks are the things that you can get a lot of multicolored impressions from. And I don't know, we need some kind of vehicle in which to provide that. So I'm thinking the pens will be that thing to deliver us from, oh, I don't know, embossing, I don't know, hindrances, barriers, whatever, okay? When it comes to dye-based inks, okay? Not with anything else, not with pigment inks or, you know, embossing pads and all that type of thing. But those embossing pads, they're not multicolored, so I like a lot of color in things like autumn types of things, foliage of any type, you know. I mean, it's really fun to use color in them, right? So we're going to give this a shot. Okay, so I just stamped out my imagery in just dye-based inks here. I'm not going to emboss everything. I just want the leaves. I want the things that are going to be really kind of forward in the scene to really stand out in a nice dimensional way. Okay, so that being said, I think I might stamp my quote stamp right now so that I can work around it. If I don't stamp it right now, then I don't know, I might fill in too much space and we might not be able to see it, so... Oh, I'm just going to do it in black. I'm kind of, in my mind, I'm thinking maybe I should do it in a color that's in the color scheme that I'm going to be doing. But this is kind of more of an experiment than anything. I do things and then I kind of refine my techniques over time. But if I'm just going into it and I'm testing one specific thing, then I'm just going to do that. Do everything else quite minimally. Sorry if my hat's in the way there. Let's see. I'm kind of looking over the top of it to see if, oops. That's what I couldn't see there, so Oh, let's see if I can get that again. Oh my gosh. You saw that on film, folks. That spring didn't print out really well there, so I just kind of flipped it around and just kind of lined it up and got it without, look at that, without a positioner. I mean, you can kind of see, where those letter forms line up. It's easier with text stamps to, get it again than, some image where you just see kind of the edge is just a line. You can kind of match up all those little specific things. So I'm glad I didn't have to start over again. Who wants to do that? Okay, so autumn is the second spring when every leaf is a flower. Not really, but, they're just saying that, all the colors in that. Okay, so let's get some color on this. So I don't have to be too careful about when I tried this before, I really tried to do things quickly so that I can get some embossing powder on it. And of course it didn't stick at all on the page because dye-based inks dry really fast, so, and they absorb into the paper really fast. So I'll just go like this, and you can see I'm getting some of that watercolory type of look, effect, whatever, by the blending of colors directly onto the stamp. Okay, I'm using some greens and yellows there. Okay. I'm going to go for primarily first impressions. Okay, so sometimes I go for another impression. Okay, but I want these to be fairly bold. These impressions to be fairly bold here. Just because we're going to do the embossing. So the embossing, in theory, is going to represent images that are very close to us and three-dimensional. So I want these to be fairly bold, in terms of my impressions. So. Yeah, see that nice watercolory type of look? I love that look. This is kind of the way that I was taught to color when I worked at a stamp in the hand company, where I learned by observation, I'd say. And these are the Marvy brush markers. 1500 series markers are really fantastic. And they're super juicy, so you can really go over things and just scribble it off like that, and that ink will come off. Okay, so this is where stamping out that quote stamp first was very beneficial, favorable to the technique, in terms of a technique here, so. Oh, let's see, let's go for some yellow. I've been going with the darker tones first and then the lighter, which I usually do. Let's go for a little bit of light first. Okay, in terms of this lemon yellow here, and then let's move into the darker tone. Not that this is a dark tone, but just darker than the other one, so. I just want to get some different looking impressions here. That one got really close to that word stamp. You usually don't want to stamp over your words at all, so be careful about that. Okay, just going for a couple little leaves right there. Okay, just color a little portion like that. I don't know, it's a kind of a, already kind of a, I don't know, cute scene, I guess. Let's go for a little bit more depth there. I wasn't going to stamp anything else, but let's go ahead and do it. I don't know what portion of this stamp I'll use, but so I'll just color the whole thing. Okay, and let's go let's go that right, like so. So it just creates a little bit more depth there by having that lighter leaf in the background like that. That looks kind of nice. Let's do that again here. Yeah. Okay, so we have some decent depth there. Just in terms of the leaves, going with different values, different hues mixed together, of course. All right, so that is that. I am going to let me just do this with some colored pencils here. As someone mentioned, I have a very casual approach to colored pencil usage. It's because, one thing, I don't have some kind of developed technique or anything like that, so it's kind of just winging it here. I usually start light and I work darker. Not with all media, with dye-based inks or, I don't know, certain types of media, like paint pens, I might start dark and work light, okay? But colored pencils, I typically work light, then I get incrementally darker, okay? You can do that two different ways. You can have darker values of those given colors, but you can also use pressure with colored pencils. By the way, this paper is a silk weight or coated paper, which is a semi-gloss. A little bit more of a slight satiny feel to it, okay? Not quite satin, but it's a little bit more dull, but just not quite as dull as a matte paper, cardstock. So the colored pencils, and this paper is really smooth, so it's not perfect for colored pencils, but it takes the colored pencils just fine. It depends what colored pencil brand you're using, too. If some colored pencils might be really hard and might not apply very easily to, semi-coated paper, but I find it works just fine. Just as long as you don't kind of want to create too many layers of colored pencils if they're applied like, traditional colored pencil formatting, where, you have really thick applications of it. Like the colored pencil masters, which I'm not at all. I'm more kind of remedial in terms of my usage. Okay, so one of the things I'm doing is I'm creating a little bit of a shadow being cast by these trees. Okay. I kind of have it where this is the light source, so my shadows are kind of going back this way, in perspective. Okay. You can watch my video on lighting and shadows that I did live fairly recently, which is a lot of fun. Okay, so developing the shadows, working, from light, medium to dark, okay? Shadows are a little bit deeper and often brighter in terms of the colors in the shadow areas where they're not getting washed out with the lighting, the bright light shining on them. Things like shadows, colors are brighter, okay, during like rainy days and whatnot. And you're saying, wait a minute, what do you mean brighter? It's darker. Brighter is not lighter, okay? Brighter is an indication of intensity and the richness of a color. Okay, so kind of when you have less light on it, typically it's just a much brighter version of something. but darker, you know. Okay. So value is an indication of light, you know, relative light and dark. Brightness is dull and intense, okay? The intensity scale, not the lightness scale. Okay, so anyways, you can see that where my shadows are starting to get developed, and then you can add in some, you know, some darker areas here and there to get, you know, some variation. This is the same type of thing I do with dye-based inks. I would say there's more control over it with colored pencils because this is more of a detail oriented tool here, more than, you know, kind of sponging on some dye-based inks. But you can do both. You can put some dye-based inks below this and then put the colored pencils above. It makes it go really, really fast at times because you do the vast areas of color with your dye-based inks, and then you can do your fine-tuning with pencils, so you can do it however you want. Okay, so that is some greens there. Let's go into some, let me hit those trunks. I'm going to hit these trunks with a little bit of this slate gray, it's called. Okay, so I'll put it on the sides of the tree that are kind of more in the shadows here. All right. Well, I wouldn't say it's in the shadows. It's the shaded side of the tree. If the light is coming from here, we'll put a little bit more of the slate gray on the opposite side of the tree. And for these trees, it'll be on the opposite side of the trees to the right of the scene. So these left ones are being left side shaded, and the trees to the right are being right side treated. You can bring some of this down into your shadows too, some of this color. Why not? It'll bring a little bit more continuity to the trees and the grassy area. All right, let's go with a little bit of brown too. Brown's always good in the grassy areas. It just kind of mellows things out, and it makes the color combination, the color hue, a little bit richer as a result than having kind of a monotone, monocolor area down there. Having this brown in there just kind of makes things a little bit more rich in terms of the overall color scheme. All right, and why not bring a little bit of this into my trees too? A little bit of warmth. I'm spending a lot of time on this. I mean, I could have had just already kind of done, you know, in terms of testing out the embossing markers. But I felt like stamping this out, though, so I thought, I might as well show you guys. Okay, so again, kind of just reiterating that idea of the shadows there, or the shaded side of the trunks. Okay, I think that is good there. All right. Let's see. I was thinking about adding this fence in here too. I don't know, I love adding my little fences into these scenes as well. I've done it a lot, but, you know, too much, but what can I say? I really enjoy it, so yeah, why not? Now, stamping out these fences over this waxy surface, sometimes it's not really a great idea, but I think the VersaFine Clair or the Brilliance Black would stamp over it okay because you know it's fairly thick ink, so I'm just going to go for it. And hopefully I get a good impression, okay? So the leaves will be embossed, and so will the fences, okay? So let's stamp this down here. I'm not using the whole fence, I'm kind of using the top of it because there wasn't enough space in this scenario here, this composition. But the top of it will do. It'll create that visual lead-in, hopefully, into the scene for the viewer's eye. Oh, it's stamped over the wax beautifully, right down here. Okay, so that's one impression. Go for the second impression. We'll have another fence coming in from this side. I don't have too much space for it, so I'm just inking up about half of it like that. Okay, and we'll stamp it right over here. I'm not even using half of it. Go about like so. It's probably about a third of the stamp, I would say. I think that's going to look really fantastic when it's embossed. Okay, now instead of waiting to use those pens, I think I better apply the powder on these right now. I don't use an anti-static pad or anything like that. So far for me, I don't know, I don't think I've had use for it quite yet. Not that it's a bad idea, or, you know, something like that, but if I get a little powder out here, I don't know, to me it doesn't really matter, so. Okay, so we have those fences that are ready for that embossing tool. Not the pens, but for the powder. Okay, now let's try the. I'm looking at something here. I see the color box green. I wonder if I could stamp out some leaves right over the top of that and emboss those too. Huh. But I'm not going to do that. Let's try out these pens and let's see how long they remain wet. Okay. So just coloring in. I'm wondering if I can do the whole area with these, or if I need to do it in stages. Okay. So I'm just going right over, roughly, my leaves in here. I'm being fairly careful. But not super careful. The brush itself is fairly stiff, which I think is a good thing. Okay. And it doesn't seem to be releasing too much of the liquid. Remains to be seen if it's wet enough for the ink. I mean, for the powder. Actually, maybe it's releasing more because I see it kind of going. I think it's bleeding beyond where I've had it down. It's going into the paper. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, so I'm just going over a couple areas. I figured, you know, if you lay some down and it starts to dry up, it's creating kind of a sealed area on the image, which might make the additional layer kind of a little bit more surface oriented than getting absorbed into the paper. So Or this isn't a glossy cardstock, so it is going to be more porous than a non-porous surface or a less porous surface like a card, glossy cardstock or something of that sort. Okay, so let's see. Let's test it out here. Oops, I touched my embossing down here. Got to be careful where I touch my card. Okay, I think that is success. You can see, I mean, I didn't hit it everywhere, so you can see where it's coated with that embossing powder there. It looks pretty good. I don't know if you can tell where it's kind of frosted. Okay. That, and let's emboss this. Let's see, let me zoom in here. Hopefully you can see this happen. So that went pretty well. One of the things I observed is that embossing powder went exactly where I put those pens, because I wasn't being super careful to stay within those leaves right there, but I thought it came out pretty good. Now, I could hit those leaf areas with another dark impression of like the VersaFine Clair and give it another layer up top. Maybe I will do that, just to kind of create, because these colors are transparent, so we can see the trunks right through those trees, so those leaves. So let's hit it with another layer, okay? And I think that will kind of, I don't know, it'll complete it a little bit more. So we'll go for another layer. Can we do that though? I should have done that before I hit it with the embossing there, but let's see if we can get away with it after the fact. What I mean is, see, I'm going to be stamping this, and this is all textured now, so I'm not quite sure what kind of impression I'll get. So I could have done it over the top of the just the impressions with the pre-embossing. So let's see if we can get it a little bit. I'll just go for a couple leaves in here, kind of hanging over the top. Yeah, that disappeared completely. It's stamping it right on top of the embossing powder. Yeah, it didn't leave an impression at all. Yeah, because this isn't sticking to it. Okay, all right. So we will just leave it at that. All right. And I will remember that for the next time. Okay, so let's see. Let's go for something in here. Horse. That's just the name of it, just called horse. Okay. Anytime you have something standing in grass, kind of wipe off their feet a little bit. So it looks like they're standing in the grass, not on like concrete or something like that. And I'm just stamping this with a VersaFine Clear. I'm not going to emboss it. All right. So let's take a look at this. In terms of the embossing there, see that? How raised that is? Same thing with that. I mean, I didn't put any color back there. You know, we could have had a little bit of a blue tone or something like that. But this is a pretty simplistic or simple application of these. I don't know, what are we at? Yeah, this took like a half an hour. Okay, and it's bigger than a standard 4.25 by 5.5. I don't know what this is. I'll put the measurements in there, but I don't know. It's just I like the look. Let me wipe off some of that that Claire there. You can just wipe it right off because it just it didn't apply, so who cares? Okay, so I am going to, let me see, that horse is a little bit wet. Let me format this into a card and we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like. All right, I'm going to pause this and we'll get this formatted a little bit and we'll take a look. Not the ideal card color combination, but it was what I had. So in terms of green here and the size of card here, like I said, it's a little bit larger than a quarter page. Put a little bit of a black border around it to kind of tie in the fences, and to contain them a little bit. But anyways, there we have it there. That embossing pen, like I said, worked pretty good. So these kind of dimensional leaves like that. I don't know, it's a pretty decent solution, I think, for getting that kind of raised look kind of within that space like that. It's one of those extra kind of touches, that if you give this to someone and having that embossed elements in here, I don't know, it's one of those things I always mention in my pieces. It's when you reward someone for further inspection, they're taking a look at it, your card, your handmade card, and you give them something extra to enjoy when they're looking at something close up. And I don't know, it makes the pieces kind of extra special. Let's add something in here too. Let's add in a little bit of, let's go with orange. Let's add in some like poppies or something in here. I don't know, maybe we can do orange and pink. How about two of those together? Everything's just kind of greens here, so let's add in I don't know, a little bit of a additional details, one of those finer details, speaking of, giving them something additional to enjoy, your viewer or whoever, the recipient of your card. These are paint pens here. Okay, so like little poppies or something like that. I kind of cluster These little dots like this. Yes, which is usually the case. You see these, unless the whole place is just, you know, slathered with flora, or, you know, that same type. I kind of add them here and there like so. And let's add a little bit of the pink one too. I'll just kind of intersperse the pink kind of within those orange ones. Okay. White would look good too, I guess. But we'll just keep this really simple. I wanted to test out these pens here, so. Okay, so I just opened these up, and remains to be seen how long they're good for. Yeah, you know, some good reviews. One person said they dried really fast on them, but if I'm in a real arid area, yeah, you know. For me, I'm in Southern California. It's not humid out or anything like that, but it lasted long enough for me to get from over here all the way over here, and that was quite a bit of, you know, coloring. Then I went back to the other side again, and I just did a real quick added application of it, just because I wasn't sure. But it looks like it was really built up on there, so I have a feeling that I probably didn't need to go back over that other time. All right, I decided to go back over with the white anyway here. I thought it would look pretty good in here, so let's try it. Yeah, the white adds that little bit of extra kind of contrast. I can even put it on my fence here. This acrylic paint pen, the acrylic paint pens these days, they're designed to be, you know, be able to be used on just about anything. So using them on the raised embossed, you know, the melted embossing powder is not a problem for these pens. I mean, you can use these pens on glass, so something like this, kind of real plasticky type of embossing powder, melted embossing powder is no problem for it. Okay, I'm just removing, while I have this pen out, I might as well, I'm just removing some of this edge on these trees, making them look a little bit more three-dimensional. Remember how I shaded one side of the tree? Well, I'm kind of lighting the opposite side of the trees. So on one side of the tree, trunks are shaded, and one side they're kind of illuminated, I guess. All right, so that is that. Let's take a close-up view here. You see those little flowers in there? I mean, when you hold it up like that, you know, you're not really going to be able to see it, but closer we get, and we see these little clusters of flowers, and just seeing that orange and pink in there, white. I don't know, it brings that surface to life a little bit. You see a little white paint pen on these rails here on the fence. And we have that embossing in there. So a pretty fun little card here. And it didn't take too long to do. It's almost considered a quick card. It's even a larger format with embossing, colored pencils, paint pen work, you know. And I don't know, it didn't take too long to do it at all. So, all right. So anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Thanks for checking out the card. I hope you enjoyed it.